Welcome to Therabytes, where we bring you bite-sized episodes, each one a piece of the puzzle that helps to explain the therapy world, the research behind it all, and how it relates to families. Hello, my name is Dr. Dana Poole. I'm a physiotherapist and the clinical lead at the Healthy Strides Foundation. It is my privilege to be hosting this podcast, one that is directed for parents of children with neurodisabilities. We hope to be able to answer some of your questions through this format. But to navigate our way through these big questions, we have the one and only, the lovely Naresha co-hosting this podcast. Welcome, Naresha.
Good morning, Dana.
Good morning. Oh, I felt like I was doing that Good Morning Vietnam thing.
Yeah.
Good morning. Anyway, it's
Healthy
a lovely
strides.
day. Yeah, exactly. Come on, man. So welcome everyone to another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Great to be here.
It is.
And I have a really good one for everyone today.
Go on.
For my Did You Know That? This is so good.
Let's go.
Did you know that spontaneous self-affirmation is related to reduced boredom, proneness, and heightened meaning in life?
Not at all. Not at all.
So this study was published in Motivation and Emotion, and researchers wanted to see if spontaneous self-affirmation was really linked to other aspects of our life. And this is about having positive attributes and values. So if you talk to yourself in a very positive way, you are strong, you are important. What was that in that movie? And you just constantly give yourself that hype. Yeah. You can actually be less bored in your day. I don't ever see myself being bored, but also have great meaning in your life, in the world that you have. So, gosh, I think there's a lot to be said about positive self-talk though as well. Yeah, right? It kind of relates to that because
I don't do enough of it, clearly. I think, not that I'm saying I'm bored. I've always got something to do, running somewhere. But I think I should do it more often though.
I think you should. And I think all the parents, running around to all their appointments and doing everything they can and working and keeping a family life, doing all those things, some self-affirmation that you are good, you are strong,
Pat on
you
the
are
back.
important. I think those are really, really great things to be able to reflect on. But it's great that these researchers decide to study it. So thank you very much for encouraging us to be positive.
Definitely.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice one. A good one for us to always remember when life gets a little bit busy.
Yeah.
So, what have you got for me today, Naresha?
Okay, next topic, trunk control, trunk, not truck, trunk control.
Trunk control.
And hypotonia.
I love this topic.
I like the sound of hypotonia, but I don't know what it means.
Okay.
So can you share us some of your insights?
My insights. Okay. So, hypotonia, we covered in the last few weeks what hypertonia was. So we've talked about spasticity and dystonia, two most common hypertonia conditions that we often see.
Right.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have hypotonia or not enough. Okay. So we don't have enough tone, essentially.
Total opposite.
Yeah, it kind of really is. And so the definitions that are often quoted in the literature is difficulties in sustaining postural control and moving against gravity, as well as a decreased resistance to passive movement. So to break that down, it basically kind of means they feel kind of floppy is the word that they would say. They just don't feel like they can hold themselves up. They kind of, when I move their body and I move their arm, it doesn't feel like I've got any resistance. You should normally feel some resistance when you're pulling an arm left or right. You can kind of feel it. Whereas these arms and legs, you tend to just be able to move them seemingly easily because there's no resistance.
Is that like a test when you go to the doctors and they your knees, when they hit your knee and you have is that a reflex?
That's a reflex.
Oh, okay.
So
totally
that's
different.
That's a deep tendon reflex. That's a completely different thing altogether.
Right.
Where it's to do with within our tendons, you get them in your knee or your ankle, your elbow, your funny bone kind of thing, and you get a reflexive motion. Okay. That is different, and we often do know that those reflexes are diminished, though, in kids with hypotonia. Okay. And this comes to the reason why kids have hypotonia. And it's worth fleshing this out a little bit. It does feel like I'm nerding out just a little bit, but just just come with me and it'll make sense.
Sure.
So there's two reasons why you can have hypotonia. The first one is central. So it's from the brain essentially. There's just not enough of that input from the brain that goes down into the muscles.
Right.
So it can happen within the brain stem, and there's just not enough information, I suppose, is the way you could say it, that really drives the body to have that tone.
Right.
So it's centralized. Then so you can see that with like cerebral palsy, you can have that.
That's the total opposite though, isn't it? Like spasticity, where you're getting too much information.
Yeah, you can do.
This one is less information.
This one's less information, but it is from different parts of the brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that part is a little bit more complicated, but it is definitely a neural drive. So it's just not enough. It's like if you had like a garden hose and you put it on like full and you've got all that in your reticulation, there's good pressure, it comes out, right? Whereas if it's central reason, this is where you just don't have a lot of pressure. So you turn it on, but not much comes through. And so your reticulation, when it comes out, it just kind of sprouts. You know, you don't get a whole lot. You've turned it to the max, but you're not getting a lot of water come through. So it comes right from the center source. That's central. So that relates a lot to children. For some children with cerebral palsy, different kinds of different conditions, and a lot of rare diseases or genetic conditions would often have central hypotonia. And then you have peripheral hypotonia. So that is when you have damage more to like the muscle area itself.
Right.
So spinal muscular atrophy, or SMAs people might call it, or, you know, some imagine someone who's had a cut, for example, a severe cut to their arm, and it affects their muscles. You know, you hear about these terrible accidents where the tendons get cut and the muscles can't work very well and they're really weak. Well, they're actually really weak because there's a problem with getting the message from the brain, which is completely fine, but it can't get over to the muscle. So it's like a bridge that's been cut in half and you can't get from one side to the next. The messages are there, but the people on the other side of the bridge don't get the message. So you've got that reason and you've got the central reason. So those are the two sort of ways you can get hypotonia, so less tone, and it's actually relatively common in a lot of the kids that we might see.
Okay.
Yeah, you go.
But then how does it coincide with the trunk?
Okay, so what we often would see in the trunk is what we call they're like your axial muscles. They're the muscles that are related to the central part of your body. And so for some reason, for a lot of children, particularly with different, it does relate to different parts of the brain that are affected and maybe what might have happened. So children that might have like an encephalopathy, so it's something that is an ischemic encephalopathy that happens at birth. They don't have enough oxygen that comes through at that particular time, and we tend to see centralized hypotonia. Your trunk just presents that way. And then over time, you might find that the arms do get some spasticity and they get really stiff. So you might see like dystonia or spasticity in the arms and the legs.
But not in the trunk.
But in the body, it might be quite weak. And that's to do a lot of the time with hypotonia, so not enough tone. And so I think the part that I find interesting with that is what then can you do about it if you have, you know.
That's right. Are they functional?
Yeah, like you can be. The important thing to note sometimes with this is just understanding if it is centralized hypotonia, you know, you can turn that tap on as high as you want, but there's not enough coming through. That's right. So if we're constantly trying to, you can strengthen the muscles still, like what they've got there, whatever is coming through, you can strengthen that. But sometimes there's only so far you can go because there's just not enough information coming down. So, you know, you would often hear about people going, I'm working on trunk control and I'm working on getting my body really strong. Yes, try to work on your body getting really strong, but you can't just do that because there's only so much those muscles can get strong anyway. So you want to make sure that you're getting the rest of your body strong too. Don't just focus on your trunk. Because it seems really obvious, right? It's the weakest part of the body. You just want to work on it. But it can be really challenging for these kids to constantly say, like, get your trunk stronger when there's just not enough information coming from the brain to help them to to get that part of their body strong.
So does that mean they look fatigued then? So what would
They can do,
what kind of
yeah.
image of that do we see?
So you tend to see someone that can sort of sit with a really C-shaped spine. So they're really flopped over,
All right.
you know. It's really hard for them to be upright. They can. You could go, okay, can you sit upright? They'll go, yep, I'll go upright for like 2 seconds,
then
3
they'll flip
seconds, and
back
they'll come back down again. So they're using all their effort.
Yeah.
And they just can't quite sustain it.
Right.
And because your trunk goes in that direction, it often means your head would flop forwards as well, you know, because you don't have that stable base.
Right.
So for a lot of therapists, they'll always be thinking about, can I get the trunk strong? Can I get the head strong? And there are things that you can do for that, but we focus more on function. So, you know, don't just work on the trunk on its own. Don't just work on the head on its own.
Yeah.
You have to do it within function still, because you want to train whatever they've got there to be able to use it in a way that matters most, because they're not going to be able to hold it for that long otherwise.
Right.
So you've got to use it functionally. So walking with a walker, but give them some trunk support.
Yep.
Don't just say, no, they can't walk because they don't have trunk control. Give them trunk support, because we can offer that, and they can still walk. And the more they're upright and the more they move in an upright position, you're strengthening their trunk and you're strengthening their head. So you can strengthen them in those positions rather than going to that, you know, I think a lot of people think about like Pilates.
Yeah.
And they'll go, we'll just do Pilates for the trunk. Yeah, it works for a lot of us, but it doesn't necessarily work with a child with centralized hypotonia.
Right.
Because they're just not going to be able to control that, and it's not functional.
Yeah. Okay. It's very interesting. And I think my next question was going to be, how do we improve trunk control? But then you've just mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's basically working not only on the trunk, but on the whole body.
On the whole body. Yeah, that's right. And it kind of moves away from a lot of that old traditional thinking, which was always like, just focus on the trunk. If you get a good, strong core, then everything else will be good. And the fact is, if you're just waiting for the trunk to get real good, you probably won't get there to where you want. Like, what's the benchmark? What are you trying to get to? Yeah. And in the meantime, they can still be really functional and upright and still be benefiting from being upright. The key to hypotonia and trunk control is you want to spend as much time upright as you can, because if you spend a lot of time on the floor or on your back, you know, gravity will take over and, you know, you're not allowing the diaphragm, for example, the big breathing muscle to start to work properly. And so kids with hypotonia might, you know, not have good breath. And so there might be more risk of aspirations and they get pneumonia. So again, you want to get these kids up and moving. It shouldn't be a limitation, because we have good equipment now to help them to get up, and that's really important. So when it comes to treatment, it looks very similar, but the reasons why we do it is a little bit different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, just talking about it, it just gives me an image of way back when. I would think that, you know, if a child with hypotonia, I can just see them not moving, because you would think that, you know, with the condition that they've got, obviously you think that they're exhausted all the time, right? So therefore you don't feel like you want to encourage them. Yeah. But I guess now, like you said, with all the equipment and so forth, what's to stop them, right? They can still lead their best life.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't be scared of using equipment, because you can help to position them in the way where they don't have to use all the effort just to be upright, but they can still engage. They can still be part of the world. They can still go to school and, you know, they can still live a really, really rich, beautiful life. And this is where equipment really comes in to help them to do that, because there's only so much they can put out for their body. There's only so much, because there is damage to their brain, and that is something that they can't help. They can't control that, but we can come around them and make it a whole lot better for them.
Is it painful? I mean,
not necessarily. No. It tends to be more like with.
Is it the passive?
Yeah, the fact that you're not moving as much. Like, it's all the other effects of it. So. If you're hypotonic and you find movement really difficult, well, we all know what it feels like if we're not moving. Everything it still feels stiff, and you don't get that nice circulation. And our children need to still have mobility. So if you just keep them really still, they probably will get some pain, but not from hypotonia, from the effects of being still.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that fine balance again, isn't it?
Yeah, it always really is. But I think my biggest take home with this is it's not something that we should be limited by and kind of go, oh, but they've got hypotonia, they've got poor trunk control. No, they can't do any of those things. They need to work on their trunk first. It's probably how we were trained 20, 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I know I was first trained that way.
Right.
But I've seen the light.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
yeah, you can see benefits from, they respond to therapy in the same way. We just got to give them some equipment and help them with it.
And give them a chance.
Give them a chance.
Yeah, to prove themselves right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So that's hypotonia. That was a good one.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
That's all right.
And I hope that was useful for everyone else as well. Remember to keep your questions coming in. We're very, very happy to answer them for you.
Definitely.
But for now, we'll talk to you all again next time. Talk to you later. Bye.